Now here's another example. Remember that shape I told you about? You can see the double helix coming over and over again. And this appears to be a symbol of our galaxy. I've given this presentation now, I guess, 3 or 4 times with this slide in it. And everyone tells me this is the most important crop circle we've ever had. There's another symbol in the crop circle that most of us would not see, and that's this right here. In Hebrew, it's called a yod. And you can see it in the tarot cards. It's a symbol, this symbol represents spiritual energy coming into the physical world. So it's saying that the galaxy is creating waves which are changing DNA and amplifying spiritual energy. We now have a crop circle that has definitively shown us to pay attention to the year 2012. So whoever is making these circles for the last 1,200 years definitely knows that 2012 is very important. What you see here is the positions of all the planets on December 21st, 2012. You can see Venus, Mercury, Mars, Earth, and the inner planets. Jupiter, Saturn, Mars here, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Notice that Pluto is in a different position in the 2 charts. Many people have speculated why this was done. Part of it could be that Pluto is not a true planet because it has a dead core. It may also be that the formation looks better if you have a perfect circle that's not cut by that line. Now this is important because if you look at the original formation, notice how wide the sun is. What happened was that a farmer got very angry about this crop circle being on his land. So he took his tractor and he drove it through these lines. The crop circle maker simply said, "Oh, you don't like it? Well, here's some more." Here are the lines that he drew through the crop circle. All these little symbols appear to represent different extraterrestrial species that are visiting us now, including Dan Burrish's little gray on a Segway. But notice the suggestion of an entirely new energy field of the solar system that's being created. Notice that it is completely unformed inside, as if something brand new is being created. Notice that the width of the sun goes all the way to Venus now. And do you see a shape inside here? It is the letter S, again suggesting the sun is changing. So, we are now going to talk about the exact changes in the solar system that crop circle was telling us to look for. This is the smoking gun that helps us prove that 2012 is something substantial. This is the yearly sunspot activity measured from ice core samples from both poles. Look at how high the solar activity is right now. This is the highest it's been in 8,000 years. The sun is giving out energy that travels much faster through space now. If you heat up a pan and drop water on it, the water will go faster the hotter the pan is. So the space between the planets is getting more energized. It normally takes over 2 hours for the sun's energy of protons to reach the Earth. But in 2005, it only took 15 minutes to get here. This scientist from London said it is incredibly fast and said it is exceedingly interesting. Everyone is worried because if a big flare hits the Earth, it could knock out the power grid. But remember that extraterrestrials are protecting the Earth so that these things won't happen. This is a recent article from NASA warning of that big storm. And this is how NASA creates kind of like a bake sale, like a fundraiser. So what we're seeing also is that the long-range solar forecast is the sun is getting weaker. This conveyor belt used to go 1 meter per second. And now it's 0.75 meters per second here. And it's only 0.35 meters per second down here. Since the 19th century, they have never seen speeds this slow. They have no explanation for what's doing this. Even the U.S. Army is now saying that the sun could be causing climate change on Earth. This doesn't mean we should go ahead and pollute the atmosphere. Here's another example where the solar wind is now slowing down so much. And they said that if it keeps on slowing down, that the heliosphere will get smaller. The heliosphere is the sun's magnetic field. So sure enough, we now know the heliosphere is 25% smaller in the last 10 years. The real reason for this is that energy from the galaxy is pushing in and compressing it in size. This is also causing a lot more dust to come into the solar system. There was more dust in 1 year after the year 2000 than in all the 1990s combined. 300% more dust in 1 year. Everyone is surprised that the sun really isn't having any activity right now. It's very quiet. And this is actually a good thing, because it suggests that the sun is returning back to normal. We don't want all these storms and sunspots. So it's slowed down so much that they've had to completely change the sunspot prediction, as you see here. This is a scientific study showing that sunspots might completely stop by 2012. So we're going to now look through, very briefly, each of the planets in the solar system, and I will show you distinct changes in every single one of them. This is my own research that I put together from mostly NASA sources. All of these things are released in the news, but nobody puts them together. Mercury now has a magnetic field that it did not have before. Mariner 10 was the first space probe to go to Mercury. They did not see a magnetic field back in the 1970s. In 2008, the Messenger probe went by, and they found significant magnetic pressure. Here's a mainstream media article about just that. They call it surprises. When you look to Venus, you see a 2,500% increase in this green glow on the dark side. When you look on Mars, you see the formation of clouds and ozone. And you're also seeing global warming. They actually call it that. Notice how much the ice is melting. This little piece disappears over here. This is only 1 year apart. And there's no SUVs on Mars. Before 1974, this plasma tube did not exist around Jupiter. Between 1979 and 1995, it became 200% denser. And they say this was stronger than expected. They always try to make it light. They don't want to give it too much energy. In the same time, we also saw a 50% increase in the density of each particle. The scientists said it exceeded expectations. They always try to make it sound boring. In 1997, you had 3 white ovals here on Jupiter. By 2000, they had merged into one. This scientist, Dr. Philip Marcus, said this will cause an 18-degree global warming in the next decade. He said this in 2000. So if he was right, we should now see new changes in Jupiter. That's exactly what's happening. They're calling them raging thunderstorms as of 2008. And they call it global upheaval. These are heat signatures in infrared. You never ever saw it that hot before. And they call it a planet-wide dramatic disturbance. It's changing the color of some of the planet's stripes. They cannot explain what's causing it. And they call it a global upheaval. They had to increase the amount of water vapor inside their model of the planet by 300 times more. Now, Jupiter's first moon is Io, and this ionosphere is the charged particles around the moon. It's gotten 1,000% higher in just over 20 years. And they call it unexpected. The entire surface of Io has gotten 200% hotter in less than 20 years. It's 3 times hotter than the surface of Mercury. The scientists say they're surprised and they cannot explain it. This is what Europa was supposed to look like. This is what they actually saw when they turned the Hubble Space Telescope on it. Much brighter than expected. This is Ganymede, the next moon. It became 200% brighter. The atmosphere of Ganymede got 1,000% thicker. Saturn grew this plasma torus in less than 12 years. 1,000% thicker during that time. In 1995, you started seeing hot spots at the poles. In 2004, you started to see massive X-rays coming out from this area. So it's as if there's a huge amount of energy coming out of Saturn now. This is what Uranus looked like in 1986 from Voyager 2. They said it was featureless as a cue ball. Now, this is what it's doing now. This is a false color image, by the way. It shows heat, specifically near-infrared radiation, it's called.